Hi, my name is Karanika, as you might already know, and today I'm going to be reading A Single Shard by Linda Sue Pike. So I'm going to make a series about this. I'm going to read chapter 1 in this video. I'm going to read chapter 2 in the next, chapter 3, and so forth. So, let's begin. Tree Ear, have you hungered well today? Cranman called out as Tree Ear drew near the bridge. The well-fed of the village greeted each other politely by saying, "Have you eaten well today?" Tree Ear and his friend turned the greeting inside out for their own little joke. Tree Ear squeezed the bulging pouch that he wore at his waist. He had meant to hold back the good news, but the excitement spilled out of him. "Craneman, a good thing that you greeted me so just now, for later today we have to use proper words." He held the bag high. Tree Ear was delighted that when Craneman's ears wickened in surprise. He knew that Craneman would guess at once. Only one thing could give a bag that kind of smooth fullness, not carrot tops or chicken bones with protruded in odd lumps. No. The bag was filled with rice. Craneman raised his walking crutch in a salute. "Come, my young friend, tell me how you came by such a fortune. A tale worth hearing, no doubt." Tree Ear had been trotting along the road on his early morning pursuit of the village rubbish heaps. Ahead of him a man carried a heavy load on a jiggy and an open-frame backpack made of branches. On the jiggy was a large wooden straw container, the kind commonly used to carry rice. Tree Ear knew the rice must be from last year's crop in the field surrounding the village. This season's rice only just begun to grow. It would be many months before the rice was harvested and the poor allowed to glean the fallen grain from the bare fields. Only then would they taste the pure flavor of rice and feel its solid goodness in their bellies. Just looking at the straw box made water rush into Tree Ear's mouth. The man had paused in the road and hoisted the wooden jiggy higher on his back, shifting the cucumber some way. As Tree Ear started, rice began to trickle out of the hole in a straw box. The trickle thickened and became a stream. Oblivious, the man continued on his way. For a few short moments, Tree Ear's thoughts wrestled with another. "Tell him quickly before he loses too much rice." "No, don't say anything. You will be able to pick up the fallen rice after he rounds the bend." Tree Ear made his decision. He waited until the man had reached the bend in the road, then ran to catch him. "Honorable sir," Tree Ear said, panting and bowing, "as I walked behind you, I noticed that you were marking your path with rice." The farmer turned and saw the trail of rice. A well-built man with a broad, sun-tanned face. He pushed his straw hat back, scratched his head, and laughed ruefully. "Impatient," said the farmer. "I should have had this container woven with a double wool, but it would have taken more time. Now I pay for not waiting a bit longer." He struggled out of the jiggy straps and inspected the container. He prodded the straw to close the gap, but to no avail, so he threw his arms up in mock despair. Tree Ear grinned. He liked the farmer's easy-going nature. "Fetch me a few leaves, boy." Tree Ear complied, and the man stuffed them into the container as a temporary patch. The farmer squatted to don the jiggy. As he started walking, he called over his shoulder, "Good deserves good, urchin. The rice on the ground is yours if you can be troubled to gather it." "Many thanks, kind sir." Tree Ear bowed, very pleased with himself. He had made a lucky guess, and his waist pouch would soon be filled with rice. Tree Ear had learned from Craneman's example. For aging in the woods and rubbish heap, gathering fallen grains head in the autumn, these were honorable ways to garner a meal. Requiring time and work, but stealing and begging, Craneman said, made a man no better than a dog. "Work gives a man dignity," Stealing takes it away, he often said. Following Crane Man's advice was not always easy for Tree Ear. Today, for example, was it stealing to wait as Tree Ear had for more rice to fall before alerting the man that his rice bag was leaking? Did a good deed balance a bad one? Tree Ear often pondered these kind of questions alone or in discussion with Crane Man. Such good served in two ways, Crane Man had explained. They keep a man's mind sharp and his thoughts of his empty stomach. Now, as always, he seemed to know Tree Ear's thoughts without hearing them spoken. "Tell me about this farmer," he said. "What kind of man is he?" Tree Ear considered the question for several moments during his memory. At last he answered. "One who lacks patience," he said it himself. He had not wanted to wait for a sturdier container to be built, and he could not bother to pick up the fallen rice. Tree Ear paused. But he laughed easily, even at himself. "If he were here now and heard you tell of waiting a little longer before speaking, what do you think he would say or do?" "He would laugh," Tree Ear said, surprising himself with the speed of his response. Then more slowly, "I think he would not have minded." Crane Man nodded satisfied, and Tree Ear thought of something his friend often said. "Scholars read the great world of world, but you and I must learn to read the world itself." Tree Ear was so called after the mushroom that grew in the crinkled half circles on dead or fallen tree trunks, emerging from the rotten wood without benefit or parent seed. A good name for an orphan. Crane Man said if Tree Ear had another name, he no longer remembered it, nor the family that might have named him so. Tree Ear shared the space under the bridge with Crane Man, or rather, Crane Man shared it with him. After all, Crane Man had been there first and would not be leaving anytime soon. The shriveled and twisted calf and foot he had been born with made sure of that. Tree Ear knew the story of his friend's name. "When they saw my leg at birth, it was thought I would not survive," Crane Man had said. "Then, as I went through life on one leg, it was said that I was like a crane. Besides, standing on one leg, cranes are also a symbol of long life." "True enough," Crane Man added. Though he had outlived all of his family and able to work, had been forced to sell his possessions one by one, including, at last, the roof over his head. Thus, it was that he came to live under the bridge. Once a year or so earlier, Tree Ear had asked him how long he lived there. Crane Man shook his head. He no longer remembered. But then he brightened and hobbled over to one side of the bridge, beckoning Tree Ear to join him. "I do not remember how long I have been here," he said, "but I know how long you are." And he pointed upward to the underside of the bridge. "I wonder that I have not shown you this before." One of the slots was a series of deep scratches as if made with the pointed stone. Tree Ear examined them, shook his head at Crane Man. "So, one mark for each spring since you came here." "I kept count of your years, for I thought the time would come when you would like to know how old you are." Tree Ear looked again, this time with keen interest. There was a mark for each finger of both hands, 10 marks in all. Crane Man answered. Before Tree Ear asked, "No, you have more than 10 years, he said. "When you came first and I began making those marks, you were in perhaps your second year, already on 2 legs and able to walk." Tree Ear nodded. He knew the rest of the story already. Crane Man had learned but little from the man who had brought Tree Ear to the bridge. The man had been paid by a kindly monk in the city of Songdo to bring Tree Ear to the little seaside of Ch'olpo. Tree Ear's parents had died of fever, and the monk knew of an uncle in Ch'olpo. When the travelers arrived, the man discovered that the uncle was no longer there. The house Having been abandoned long before, he took Tree Ear to the temple on the mountainside. But the monks had been unable to take the boy in because fever raged there as well. The villagers told the man to take the child to the bridge, where Crane Man would care for him until the temple was free of sickness. And Crane Man always said, when a monk came to fetch you a few months later, you would not leave. You clung to my good luck like a monkey to the tree, not crying, but not letting go either. The monk went away, you stayed. When Tree Ear was younger, he had asked for this joy often, as if hearing it over and over again might reveal something more. What his father's trade had been, what his mother had looked like, where his uncle had gone. But there was never anything more. It no longer mattered. If there was more to having a home than Crane Man and the bridge, Tree Ear had neither knowledge nor need of it. Breakfast the morning was a feast. A bit of the rice boiled to a gruel in a cast-off earthenware plate, served up in a bowl carved from a gourd, and a Crane Man produced yet another surprise to add to the meal. 2 chicken leg bones! No flesh remained on the arid bones, but the 2 friends cracked them open and worried away every scrap of marrow from inside. Afterward, Tree Ear washed in the river and fetched a gourd of water for Crane Man, who never went into the river if he could help it. He hated getting his feet wet. Then Tree Ear set about tidying up the area under the bridge. He took care to keep the place neat, for he disliked having to clear space to sleep at the tired end of the day. Housekeeping complete, Tree Ear left his companion and set back up on the road. This time he did not zigzag between rubbish heaps, but strode purposefully towards a small house set apart from the others at a curve of the road. Tree Ear slowed as he neared the mud and wood structure. He tilted his head, listening, and grinned when the drowning syllables of a song changed his ears. The master potter Min was singing, which meant that it was a throwing day. Min's house backed onto the beginnings of the foothills and their bushy growth, which gave way to pine-wooded mountains beyond. Tree Ear swung wide of the house. Under the deep eaves at the back, Min kept his potter's wheel. He was there now, his gray head bent over the wheel, chanting his wordless song. Tree Ear made his way cautiously to his favorite cell, behind a paulownia tree whose low branches kept him hidden from view. He peeped through the leaves and caught his breath in delight. Min was just beginning a new pot. Min threw a mass of clay the size of a cabbage onto the center of the wheel. He picked it up and threw it again. Threw it several times. After one last throw, he sat down and stared at the clay from away. Using his foot to spin the base of the wheel, he placed dampened hand on the sugary lump, and for the 100th time Tree Ear watched the miracle. In only a few moments the clay rose and fell, grew taller, then rounded down, until it curved into a perfect symmetry. The spinning slowed, the chant too died out and became a mutter of words that Tree Ear could not hear. Min sat up straight. He crossed his arms and leaned back a little, as to see it from a distance. Turning the wheel slowly with his knee, inspected the graceful shape for invisible faults. Then, "Pa!" He shook his head and in a single motion of disgust scooped up the clay, slapped it back onto the wheel, whereupon it collapsed into an oafish lump again, as if ashamed. Tree Ear opened his mouth to let out his breath silently, only then realizing that he had been keeping it back. To his eyes the vase had been perfect, its width half its height, its curve like those of a flower petal. Why had wondered, had Min found it unworthy? Why had he seen that it so displeased him? Min never failed to reject his first attempt. Then he would repeat the whole process. This day Tree Ear was able to watch the clay rise and fall 4 times before Min was satisfied. Each of the 4 efforts looked identical to Treeear, but something about the 4th pleased Min. He took a length of twine and slipped it deftly under the vase to release it from the wheel, then placed the vase carefully onto a tray to dry. As Treeear crept away, he counted the days on his fingers. He knew the potter's routine well. It would be many days before another throwing day. The village of Chiplo faced sea. Its back to the mountains and the river edging it like a neat stream. Its potters produced the delicate celadon that had achieved fame not only in Korea, but as far away as the court of the Chinese emperor. Chopo had become an important valley for ceramics by virtue of both its location and its soil. On the shore of the Western Sea, it had access to both the easiest sea route northward and to plentiful trade with China. And the clay from the village's pits contained exactly the right amount of iron to produce the exquisite gray-green color of celadon, so prized by collectors. Treeear knew every potter in the village, but until recently he had known them only for their rubbish heaps. It was hard for him to believe that he had never taken the time to watch them at work before. In recent years, the pottery from the village kilns had gained great favor amongst those wealthy enough to buy pieces as gifts, both for the royal court and the Buddhist temple, and the potters had reached new levels of prosperity. The pickings from the rubbish heaps had become richer in consequence, and for the first time, Treeear was able to forget about its stomach for a few hours each day. During those hours, it was Min he chose to watch most closely. The other potter kept their wheel in a small, windowless shack, but in the warm months, Min preferred to work beneath the eaves of his house, open to the breeze and the view of the mountains. Working without walls meant that Min possessed great skill and confidence to match it. Potters guarded their secrets jealously. A new shape for a teapot, a new inscribed design. These were things that potters refused to reveal until a piece was ready to show to a buyer. Min did not seem to care about such secrecy. It was if he was saying, "Go ahead, watch me. No matter you will not be able to imitate my skill." It was true, and it was also the main reason that Treeear loved watching Min. His work was the finest in the region, perhaps even in the whole country. Okay, that's it for today. Make sure you guys watch my next video for A Single Shroud Chapter 2.